Melhor guardar isso aqui. Isso está melhor, enquanto eu estava querendo também, ó.
Você me deixou na cozinha também.
Onde está a vida? Você fica desse lado, tá? Do lado da tomada.
É meu lado mesmo.
Good to go. Eu posso deixar até esse computador virado assim, ó.
I am not going. I'm staying. You will go. I'll do you. Yes. You don't have to, but yeah.
Você passa slide.
You probably will.
Esse aqui.
Talvez aqui na mesa mesmo?
Bem, Didi. Vamos? Mas o papai pode tirar a casaca.
Eric, aqui no teclado seria nos arrows?
No caso que... O Vitor, você dá uma mãozinha aqui, ó. Deixa, pode deixar.
I am technology literate.
Tem que mudar a janela.
Tá.
Tem que mudar a janela. Aqui agora tá da música.
Tá.
Mas agora tem que mudar a janela.
Tá. Tá.
Okay. I took a shower, washed my head, put on deodorant, perfume. You guys can sit a bit closer so I don't have to yell.
Você vai fazer uma oração? Quer que deixe a música? Tá.
Okay, so let's do our harmonization reading. And it's from Fonte Viva, Living Spring, and it's text 157. Children, see that you do not despise one of the little ones. Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 10. When Jesus said not to despise little children, he was expecting from us not only providential measures having to do with bread and clothing. It is not enough to feed starving little mouths or to cover cold little bodies. It is essential to provide them with moral shelter, which guarantees the reborn spirit the work environment needed for its sublimation. Many parents guarantee their children material comfort, but relegate their soul to lamentable neglect. Truancy in the streets produces delinquents who end up in prisons or mental hospitals, but spiritual laxity in the home creates social demons of perversity and madness, who, weighted by money or social status, often spend much time spreading misery, suffering, darkness, and ruin with deplorable impunity before earthly justice. Wow, this was written decades ago, couldn't be more. Therefore, do not despise children by handing them over to the impulses of the animalized nature. Remember that all of us are being educated and re-educated before the Divine Master. A plate of food is important for a person's growth, but we must not forget that man does not live of bread alone. Let us remember children's spiritual nourishment by means of our attitudes and examples, warnings and corrections at the right time, for to abandon them morally in their tasks of today will be to condemn them to self-content in the works they will be accountable for tomorrow. Let's do our initial prayer. Dear Lord, dear Jesus, we thank you for being here today on this beautiful day as a community in brotherhood and sisterhood to celebrate our children, to remind ourselves of our roles as parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and also as our parents' children as well. May we have a very productive meeting today. May we learn and understand a bit better the role that all of us play in the evolution of our whole planet, starting by ourselves, extending to our families, to our community, our city, country, and the planet as a whole. So be it. Okay, so this is a first. It's a bit weird to be free here. But here we go. So, children and youth spiritist education. Understanding the invitation. When Jesus says, "Let the little children come to me." And the bibliography for this is the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Genesis, and the Spirit's Book. So, the Spirit Mei, she dictated several messages to Chico Xavier about children and spiritist education for children. And there's a lot of literature by Mei talking about ways that we can see and teach our little ones. In one of those texts that was psychographed by Chico Xavier, Mei says, "A child is the tomorrow requesting our fraternal support." Right? Undeniable that they are the future. And she says that the child is a blooming seed. It's the tree of the future, which will produce according to the quality of our sowing. Do you guys know sowing? Plantio. They're going to produce according to how well we plant. She says that the child is a blank book that will later unveil what we have written on the pages today. Hi, welcome. So it's interesting because we as adults, every time we feel that we are starting a new phase in our lives, we say, oh, that was a closed chapter. Now I'll start a new one. But sometimes we forget to think about our children as not just a blank chapter, a whole blank book. And we are not just writing on our books, we are writing on their books as well, right? Not just as parents, because sometimes we're like, I don't have children, whatever. But we have family members. Everybody has children around, as nephews, nieces, or sometimes just friends' children, right? And we are an example to all of them. They are watching us. They are little sponges that watch us and copy us way more than we think. They don't listen very well, as most of us do, but they are paying attention to our behavior. Way more than they pay attention to our words. So the child is an emerging light that will shine in the future according to the fuel we place in his or her heart. Right? Make sense? It's a delicate boat that will cross the rough oceans of earth according to the strength we enriched his or her structure with. No pressure. Oh, yeah, because, yeah, if they close that door, they can't open from inside. So the child is, in the soul of a child lies the essence of war and peace, misfortune and happiness for the days to come. What kind of human being are we raising, not just as parents, but as a society? Culturally, what are we teaching our children? Are we teaching our children pride? Or are we teaching our children to be part of the community? Are we teaching competition? Or are we teaching fraternity? Emilia Montessori, she has a very famous quote that roams the internet, Facebook, you can find it anywhere, where she says that our culture raises kids for competition, and competition leads to war. When we start raising kids for cooperation, then we are going to be planting a seed for peace. Not these exact words, but that's what she means. Can we identify that in ourselves? When our kids come home with their report cards and we look at it, and sometimes we may ask, oh, how did your friends do? When they come home with a very good grade and we want to know if anybody did better than they did. When we place them in competitions, not as a team, but like individual competitions, there's nothing wrong with individual competitions, but when we are not happy as parents if they're not first place, right? Second place is the first loser. That's what some parents say. So we are raising our kids to compete, to be better than the others, to be better than everybody else. And when they're not, what happens? Frustration, anger, right? So we need to be very, very careful.
And I think,
yes, please.
Sometimes we use the words with kids, oh, no, winning is not the most important. You know, the important is compete and be, but as a mom, my example is that I always want to win. I always want to be the best. My words and my actions are not aligned.
Yeah.
And
not only that, we give them the feeling that we are better than they are. I always have to be first. If you're not first, it's okay. So we give them the feeling that, well, if you're not that good, that's okay, but I'm the best. Right? And then it gets to the point where children compete with parents. Because I need to be as good as my dad. I need to be as good as my mom. So they're not even competing with other kids. They're competing with their parents. And we see that a lot. And finally, May says that, thus, this way, leading the young spirits to the better understanding of Jesus means devoting our lives to the most sublime experience in the world, the service of humanity to our fellow men on the road to ever after redemption. When we are teaching our kids cooperation, we are teaching them to build a society together with everybody else, instead of competing and always wanting to be on top of everybody else. Right? So, a lot of food for thought. Okay, so we're going to do an initial reflection with a few questions for us to think about. Do you feel as an immortal spirit? And how is this feeling? Do we always feel as an immortal spirit? What's the difference if I feel as an immortal spirit or not in my daily life? You're going to act as an immortal spirit. But what does that mean?
School.
Yes.
That, but also you're going to focus on those little symbols.
That's what I was looking for. Exactly. We put things into perspective, right? YOLO, you only live once. We got to do everything right here, right now. If we feel, not just know that we are, but if we feel as an immortal spirit, we put things into perspective. And we are able to value things that are more important, right? Instead of worrying and stressing out about the little everyday things. Do you see, for those who are parents, and you know, this is actually something that if we don't have children, it's something that we can actually think in reference to our own parents. Because in general, we see our parents as the providers. They're the providers, right? They're always there. That's it. But do we see our children or our parents, if we don't have children, as immortal spirits? And how is that feeling? Like thinking of my father as an immortal spirit as opposed to the guy who's always there when I need him. Does it change things? Because sometimes we think of ourselves. You know, like what I'm going through right now is a result of my actions in the past. But sometimes we forget to think that way about our children and our parents as well. So more food for thought. As an immortal spirit, do you understand that your ultimate goal is to love and to be happy? Do we understand? Okay, yeah, we understand, but we don't always feel like that, and we don't always act like that. Do you see Jesus as your roadmap to reach this goal? Do you feel he is your model and guide? So that's a personal one. How much effort do you put in your kids to follow Jesus' teachings? And I will say the same thing. Today we are talking specifically about kids who are our future. But again, even if we don't have children ourselves, we have nephews, we have nieces, we have friends' children who are with us, who are looking at what we're doing, paying attention to us. So how much effort do we put into that? Because I come to the Spiritist Center, and it's all good and great, and I believe Jesus, and Jesus is my model and guide. Am I acting like that around the children that I live with or that I have any kind of relationship with? Or is talking about Jesus just not cool? So, Spirit's book question 210. Through their thoughts and prayers, can parents attract a good spirit instead of an imperfect one to indwell, to inhabit the body of their child? What do you think? Like those mothers who pray for their kids to be born with blue eyes. Forget about genetics. Do you think it's yes or no? Do you think if parents really pray and concentrate, can they attract a good spirit to inhabit the body of the baby they're expecting?
People do that.
No, people do that. But can they? Is it possible?
Because it depends on what you have accepted before.
There's a whole lot of planning, right? For our whole incarnation, our kids' incarnation, right? So, plus, not only that, is it fair that, we go back to the whole ask and it will be given to you. So if I pray hard enough, if I ask hard enough, I'll get a good one.
Like you're shopping.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, like you go shopping for a good one. Please give me one that sleeps well. Right? So, yeah, you are correct. Of course not. No. They can, however, improve the spirit of the child to whom they have given birth and whom has been entrusted to them. It is their duty. Ill-natured, like bad-natured, children are a trial for their parents. And let's not forget, as we all know, that we have accepted to welcome that child. We have accepted to be that child's parents beforehand. It wasn't forced on us, right? Question 582. Can parenthood be considered a mission? What do you think? I'm going to ask those who don't have children, because those who have children already know the answer.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, not only. It is without a doubt a mission, and at the same time, a very great duty that involves parents more than they might think concerning their responsibility for the future. It's one of the biggest missions. And then this is the answer from the spirits, and this is a comment by Kardec. God has placed children under the care of their parents so that they may guide them on the path of goodness, and has facilitated their task by giving children a frail and delicate organization that renders them accessible to all sorts of impressions. All babies are cute, right? Even animals. Babies are cute. It's not by accident, right? It's so that we will warm up to them, and it will awaken in us, it will raise in us that desire to take care of them, right? It's definitely not by accident. And after Johnson & Johnson, they even smell good. I don't know how it used to be, like way back then, but now they smell awesome too. They not only look great, but they smell good too, most of the time. However, there are those who are more concerned with training the trees in their orchards and making them produce fine fruit than with training the character of their children. By that, we can understand that there are those parents or any significant adult, and we are talking about teachers as well. Teachers are very significant adults in a child's life, and it's a big responsibility too. So by that, what they mean is some people are way more worried about material, exterior things than with improving their children's spirit, soul, right? Than trying to guide that child better. If their children fail due to their neglect, they will have to bear the punishment. By punishment here, we mean consequence. And the suffering of their children will come back to them in a future life because they did not do what was incumbent on them for their children's advancement on the path of goodness. Does everybody understand that? So if my child doesn't do well because of my neglect, there will be consequences for me. If I do my very best and they still choose the wrong path, it's on them. But if they don't choose the right path because I didn't guide them to the right path, I have responsibility in that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So what does guide them to the path of goodness mean? What do we mean by that?
I guess you just guide them to what really matters and to make them evolve as immortal spirits.
And how do we do that?
I guess, well, Jesus can be a guidance for them, but talking about all the virtues, compassion, everything that we learn, and this is one of the ways, but giving the example.
That's a huge one.
The answer you were looking for?
Yes, yeah. Part of it. You went deeper than I was expecting. Thank you. For some parents, guiding their kids to the path of goodness, for a parent who might not be very spiritualized, no matter what religion, could be just to have a well-behaved child. And even though we have one here, we all know, if we think of ourselves, if we think of our childhood, our teenage years mainly, how many times did we behave as little saints in front of our parents? But when we were just with our friends, we made all the worst choices possible.
Never did that.
Nope.
Never.
Nope. I can't identify myself with that situation. Right? So for some parents, if their kids are well behaved, meaning in front of them, they're good kids. Many times that's the case. Many times it's not. So we need to try and understand and go deeper than the surface. Like that little saint angel behavior can be sincere, but it can be just to appease the angry parent. But the moment I'm not close to my parents, I become a little devil, right? No child has ever done that. So, question 625. We already know that one. What is the perfect standard that God has offered to humankind as a guide and model?
Jesus.
There we go. Look at Jesus. Right? And when we talk about Jesus as our guide and model, are we talking about being perfect? Do we want our kids to behave like a little Jesus? What? Yeah, I used the wrong word. Yeah, I used the wrong word. Yeah, we want. As parents, we want, but is that reasonable? Is it reasonable to expect? No. However, we're not talking about turning our kids into little Jesuses. Okay? Jesus is the highest standard of moral perfection. So this is what we're talking about. We are referring to Jesus' moral perfection, to which humankind may aspire on earth. God offers him as the most perfect model, and the doctrine he has taught is the purest expression of God's law, because he was animated by the divine spirit and was the purest being that has ever walked the earth. So when we are telling our kids how they're supposed to be, are they supposed to be first place in all the competitions that they participate in? No. When we're telling our kids what they should aspire to be, they should be aspiring to be a model of Jesus's moral perfection. They're not going to be perfect, as we are not, of course. However, what model are we giving them? We're giving them the first place as a model, or we're giving them the most perfect spirit that lived among us as a model? And what does our guide and model say about children? What did Jesus say about children? That they are little pests?
And children come to me.
Ah! Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them." You know, hinder? Oh gosh, what's the translation? Stop, atrapalhar, não deixar ir, segurar.
Prevent.
Sorry, Ana?
I was just trying to.
Yeah, prevent. Yeah. Like delay, hold back. For the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. How do we understand that? How many children do you see asking their parents that they want to go to Jesus? How do we hinder our kids from going to Jesus? Oh, I would never tell my kid not to go to Jesus. That doesn't, if you think literally, that doesn't make sense. A little more than that. That too, definitely. And here, we're not just talking about Spiritism. How do we hinder our kids from going to Jesus? Like I said, how many kids or teens or preteens get out of bed on Sunday and say, "Hey, I'm going to Jesus"? And sometimes we as parents, "Oh man, it's Sunday. I want to sleep in. I deserve my rest. I worked all week. So if we ask, speaking from experience, our teen, do you want to go to the Spiritist Center? Do you want to go to church? Do you want to go whatever religion it is anybody practices? Are they going to just jump from the bed and say, yay? Not necessarily. So in general, and that's what we saw in the questions before, God gave us the spirits that are reincarnated or reincarnating. God gave them to us as tiny little things that are delicate and fragile and malleable. Mainly up to 7 years old. They are very malleable. That's when we have the most influence on them. And just to use an expression to might help you understand. Kids buy what we sell. Whatever we sell, they buy. Mainly when they're young. When they start getting older, they start having their own ideas. But when they're younger, they will buy whatever we sell. And if I sell that, I deserve my rest, I'm not going to go today, that's what they're buying. If we sell, this is good for me, I am going because I want to go. I'm going because I love it. I'm going because it fills me. And I want the same for you. Do we see the difference there? What are we selling to our kids? Right? So we really need to be careful, because hindering kids from going to Jesus is stopping them from listening to his words. And you know, like I said, there are many religions out there where a kid can learn virtues. So the name of the religion doesn't matter. What matters is that we are taking our kids to Jesus, not Jesus in the Christianity sense, in the Catholic Church, or even in the Spiritist Center. To Jesus, the moral model of perfection. The virtues that will make that human being a better person. And later in life, they can make their religious choices. If they decide that their parents' religion doesn't suit them, they can switch. They can have their own quest for their truth. However, all those virtues that we taught them, like Mei Mei said in the beginning, what we wrote on their book in terms of teaching virtues and cooperation will stay there. They are the light that will shining according to the fuel we give them. So let's fuel them with virtues. And how do we answer Jesus' appeal effectively? No? Okay. So, Mei Mei again. She says that education is considered well understood and well lived if education is able to fully educate the human being. The school might give knowledge, or even parents might give knowledge, but is only knowledge education? Knowledge and education are not synonyms. Sometimes we confuse them, but they are not the same thing. So education is considered well understood and well lived if able to fully educate the human being. To achieve this expectation is to understand the essence of the teaching of the Nazarene Master, which remains everlasting. Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven. So educating the human being, not just teaching lessons. Education is a lot more comprehensive. Is the example that we give. Is not just, like Anna said, it's not just what I say, but how I behave. If I tell my kid that it's okay not to be the best, but all my kid says is me trying to be perfect, the speech and the attitude don't match, right? The important thing is to take care of our children, guide them with love and security. This is our role in the world, to lead the children to Jesus, despite our human imperfections, struggles, and conflicts, characteristics of our moral delay. Right? Anybody who has kids will understand. A parent, in general, wants their kids to be better than they are. I want my children, I think 5 minutes. Yeah. I want my children to be better than I ever was. Not in terms of competition, but in terms of human beings. So we always want the best for our kids and for the world. Is anybody satisfied with the way the world is right now? How do we change the world?
Change. Change ourselves to change.
What is the world? Who makes the world? Yes. Right now, about 7 billion reincarnated, right? So we, the world, is made by a collective of, right now, 7 billion spirits incarnated. And let's not think about the discarnate and their influence and none of that. Let's just think of the people who are incarnated. Think of 7 billion dots. Now, the collective is made from 7 billion dots. If every one of those dots choose to evolve, to be a better person, to treat each other the way they would like to be treated, is the world going to improve? Oh boy, and how, right? The collective is made from all the individuals. And every individual that chooses to improve themselves is automatically improving the collective. Right? And by educating our children, what we're doing is we're planting a good seed, a good dot in that collective. And what is Spiritist education? We're just teaching them that we reincarnate and they will come back again. And my son got into so much trouble. He goes to Catholic school, and in grade 1, he decided to tell his teacher, who was a very hardcore Catholic, that after he died, he would come back as a baby again later, and he got into a lot of trouble. So is Spiritist education just teaching our kids the fundamentals of Spiritism? We communicate with spirits, God exists, we reincarnate. There, done. Yeah, we wouldn't be asking the question if it was, right? So it is to lead the children to Jesus in terms of giving them the best model and guide we possibly could. As simple as that. The concept simple, the practice not so much. But the concept is very simple, right? We lead them to Jesus. Like he said, let the little ones come to me. And what is our goal in Spiritist child education?
Put the seeds in their hearts.
To guide them with love and security to Jesus. Like I said again, the concept, Very simple, right? How? The animation didn't work because we're supposed to answer the how before the answer got there, but the answer is there already. So by teaching them moral virtues and to love God, understanding the divine laws. Okay, so what we try to do is, according to their age, according to their ability to understand things, introduce the concepts of the virtues and of the divine laws. They can't understand it at the complexity that we can, but they can certainly understand it to a certain level. And the more they grow, the deeper they can understand, the more they understand. So some of the virtues that we work in our sessions: fraternity, love, charity, humility, faith, hope, patience, indulgence, justice, generosity, tolerance, serenity, respect, discipline, so on and so forth. Apprentice feeling, that is going to be the virtue of May. Teach them not to be the perfectionists that we sometimes are. Teach them that we are all apprentices, that we're all here learning. If we knew everything, we wouldn't be here, by the way, right? So this is what we try to do in the Spiritist Education for Children sessions. We work with the virtues. And Bezerra de Menezes says that a spiritually educated child will be an adult that will raise oneself toward future happiness. Right? There is extensive material by Mei, by Bezerra. Bezerra also talks a lot about children. And there's a whole section in the Spirit's book that talks about the age, during what age a child is more amenable to our teachings. There's a whole lot more that can be said, but today the idea was just to give you an overview of how we treat Spiritist education for children. Here at FSS, we started kind of like a classroom style, and then we evolved to go back exactly to Jesus as a model. So even with the little kids, we used all the parables that we use with the adults, that we have some talks about those parables. We use the same parables with kids. We just bring it down to their level. We just bring it down to simple ideas that they can understand and absorb, right? So this month, we are talking about compassion. So with the kids, we talked about the parable of the Good Samaritan who had compassion. So we use other stories as well. We did exercises with them. For example, we also taught them about empathy, because in order to have compassion, you need some empathy. You need to try and put yourself in the other person's shoe. So we blindfolded them and we taught them Braille, how to write their names in Braille. How does a blind person feel? Then in another lesson, we made them write with their mouths, put a pen in their mouth and write their name. How does a person without arms feel? So by little practical and objective lessons like that, we were trying to teach them what is empathy. What does it mean to put myself in other person's shoe? How does the other person feel? Right? Many of the virtues we repeat year after year, and then every time we repeat, we go up a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, so that they can start understanding how comprehensive a virtue can be, other virtues that are associated, and so on. And we are always open. If anybody would like to volunteer, to help, to be part of our education for children, everybody is always more than welcome. And by the way, half of our team don't have kids. So you don't need to be a parent in order to be involved, because they are our future, if they're our kids or not. Thank you, and apparently they have something for us. Thank you.
Desliga o projetor.
Soninha, can you film? We will need her. Deixa ela filmar. Deixa ela filmar. Vai ser voluntária. From the book, Spiritist Way, Psychography by Chico Xavier, by the Spirit Albino Teixeira. And we, who love countless studies, with a view to the edification of happiness and the progress of the world, let us now make as many as possible exercise of compassion. So, guys, compassion. We have to exercise compassion. And that's what we're training today. So, number one, with Gabriel, what if you were the agonized beggar who stretched out his hands to the public goodness?
You're going to need me? Okay.
Yeah.
What do I do?
You're gonna be the person that helps me out.
Okay.
Okay, so feel
What you
if
do?
you were this beggar. Close your eyes and feel you are the beggar.
It's like when he's asking me to download a new game.
But now you're going to feel not just this sad feeling, but also the happy feeling. The most important, the compassion for those who are helping you.
Thank you for helping me. You're very welcome.
It's a good feeling? Yay! Hugging! Now, number two. What if you were the unhappy mother, tormented by the crying of her hungry little children?
So I have to be the baby? No. Oh, I'm the mother?
Now you're the mother.
Oh, you didn't tell me who I am.
You are, and you have a hungry baby.
You're always hungry, sweetie.
Imagine that. And now someone come and help you, but give you just one piece of bread. You are you going to eat your bread?
I'm going to give to my child.
Oh, that's a beautiful feeling of compassion. Hey. Number three. What if
Is it
you...
still me?
No.
Okay.
Now it's me and this little guy here. Let's wonder. We are child who wanders unprotected away from home. We are away from home. He's a great doctor. Let's go back home. Hey.
I'm a baby.
Now you, yeah? What if you are the father of a troubled family? Yeah. Você é o papai que está preocupado lá no trabalho com o filhinho que está dodó em casa. Como é que você faz? Oh, meu filhinho.
Eu faço isso. Não vou fazer nada.
E aí você lembra quando você está dodói, né? Que vem o papai e a mamãe e te abraça. É?
Não vou fazer nada.
É.
Porque é só para imaginar, né?
Ele falou que ele não sonha dormindo, mas ele sabe sonhar acordado. Parabéns!
Parabéns pro tio Moa.
Não. Sophie? Não, pode dizer com o papai. What if you are an old man thrown unprotected into the street? Vamos, papai. Fecha os olhos, papai. Faz de conta que você é um velhinho.
Fecha os olhos, David.
Velhinho. Sozinho. Abandonado. Oh, poor. Let's have compassion. Let's help him.
Okay.
Your turn.
Okay.
Let's help him. Let's help him.
We are not helping anymore. You're no longer helping.
So everybody now.
Me?
If you were beside of greater struggle than yours, you would understand at once the imperative of restless charity and mutual help. Let us reflect on it. And we, who love countless philosophies, with the view of edification of happiness and the progress of the world, let us make as many as possible exercises of compassion. Yay.
Thank you guys. Good job. Good job. Good job. High five. High five.
High five. Hey, Lucas.
Let's do our final prayer.
Não. Eu já tenho um tablet lá na minha casa e já tinha 3 milhões de aplicativos. 3 milhões. Bastante uns 3 milhões.
Let's do our final prayer. Does everybody want to participate?
No.
Do we have any volunteers? La Clara, do you want to volunteer? No? No, I'm going to send you. So let's close our eyes. Sophie, Lucas, do you want to help us with the prayer? Let's close our eyes. Dear Master Jesus, dear spiritual guides of our home, FSS, we thank you for the priceless opportunity to be here together, for the priceless opportunity to be part of our children and other children's lives.
One minute, stop.
Shh, Lucas. We would like to thank you for the blessings you give us. And we ask you, Jesus, for strength to help us understand. We ask you for strength that will lead us to help others. We ask you for strength to do our best as human beings, as mortal spirits, to do our best as parents, children, uncles, aunts. May we all help all the children around us who are the future of this planet. Give us strength to help them make this a better place for all the incarnate and discarnate spirits. May we have a blessed week. So be it.
So be it. Okay, so be it.